California is widely regarded as a deeply blue state. However, when we look at the map of individual districts, there are actually far more red districts than blue ones. In your view, is California truly a solid blue state? And during the election night television coverage of the 2020, 2022, and the 2024 elections, many of us were shocked to see that California declared Democratic candidates the winners just 1 to 2 hours after polls closed, even when less than half an hour of the ballots had been counted. How do you assess the integrity of California's elections? If such election irregularities do exist under those circumstances, how would you realistically hope to win on this election? Is a big question for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Mark. You asked a number of questions. First of all, I agree with you. There are a lot of conservatives in California. And we saw it in the 2024 election, 41% of California voted for President Trump, even though we have 75% who are registered as Democrats. A lot of the Democrats voted for President Trump. And I think they're conservative Democrats, and they're tired of the Democratic policies. The second thing we saw is 10 counties go completely red. So we know that there are a lot of conservatives in California, but they need to have hope in the candidates who are running, so we have to get the votes out. So there is a trend happening. The other thing that I believe that God's going to use is that the LA fires, Pacific Palisades and Altadena, 80% of those homes are Democrat voters, and they're still not seeing results. It was Democrat government mismanagement. Governor Newsom, our governor, defunded the fire department $45 million in 2024. Mayor Bass defunded LA County $17 million. So we had fire trucks that were not working. We had water hydrants that were empty. We had a reservoir that holds millions of gallons of water, the Santa Ynez Reservoir, that was broken. And so we had no water there. And so I think a lot of these Democrats are tired and fed up with the management of the Democrats, and they're ready to vote conservative. But having said that, you hit on a very important election integrity, and elections have been stolen. One of my elders ran for state assembly, and they were counting new ballots that were coming in after the polls had closed, up to Christmas. So November 5th was the election, and they were still getting new ballots in by Christmas time. And where did those ballots come from? And they were fabricated. It's been just terrible corruption. And so what we need to do is that we need to take the election integrity. And what I'm going to implement is, number one, we're going to have voter ID. You're going to have to show people that you are a citizen and that you have a driver's license, that you can vote. So that's number one, because we have a lot of fraud. Number two, I'm going to take it from the Secretary of State's jurisdiction and make it local. And so the local people with Republicans involved will be poll watchers. They will be overseeing the local election, so that this, like you said, we have one a church volunteer at a election during the recall of Gavin Newsom against Larry Elder. And she said the people were lined up outside. They hadn't even voted, but they shut it down and said, the election's over. Gavin Newsom won, so you could all go home. And that is totally unconstitutional. Everyone should have a voice and to vote, regardless if that was true. But that's the kind of things that happen, and she couldn't do anything about it because all the people who are running the election booth were Democrats. But we got to have both Democrats and Republicans manning the polls. And so we're going to implement voter ID, both parties manning the polls. And then I really believe that what we have to do is, on a local level, if there's any kind of fraud, we have to sue. We have to legislate so that we can get some laws passed for election integrity. And what I mean by suing it, we'll lose in the California courts, but I'm hoping the Supreme Court and the federal government will be involved with us to restore election integrity. So it's a very complex issue, but what you're saying is true. The good news is that we are seeing more red in California, more people who are conservative, and we need to get them to come out, especially the church, because many of the church members are registered. Like we have 6 million evangelicals who are registered, but 3 million of them don't show up for election. They've thrown in the towel. They said, what difference does it make? But we got to encourage them to come out and vote.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem is to wake up this. You say more than half, they don't come out for vote. That's a problem. So we have to find a way to wake up them.
Yeah, it begins with pastors, and I want to appeal to all the pastors. We have to encourage, and what we do in our church, we make it easy to register. We have a QR code right there in the lobby. We have a table, and we say, if you have not registered, please register right here. They could get their phone, and they could do it very quickly and register. And then when before election, we have a Christian voters guide to show who's running and which candidates have a conservative biblical platform and to support them. And so we really try to guide people. And then all the different bills, most of them are very evil because it's just, at the very least, it wastes a lot of tax money. And so what we'll do is educate them on bills, what bills to vote for. Like, for example, Proposition 50, we just changed the district lines. And so as conservatives, we should say vote no on Prop 50, but unfortunately, Prop 50 won by like 60% of the voters. And so that's a problem. So we have to educate people what these bills are all.
Educate is very important. I think it's spiritual warfare.
A lot of spiritual warfare. That's why I'm mobilizing prayer all throughout.
Yes.
We have a program called A Million Ecclesias. We're mobilizing a grassroots army of prayer warriors and activists, 1 million of them. And so we're talking about 2 or 3 people praying. Everyone who volunteers for my campaign, we put them in a prayer group if they're Christian, and to say, pray for California. We have to do spiritual work there. We have to change the spiritual climate of California.
Yes, very important. Thank you.